Welcome and good evening to everybody. We'll start with the evacuation procedure. In the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, please leave by one of the 6 emergency exits around the sides of the chamber. Please assemble at the far side of the front car park nearest to the park entrance. Officers will be on hand to assist persons who require any assistance. Public recording of the meeting. There is legislation that allows the public to film, record or use social media at a council meeting. This must not be disruptive to the order of the meeting, nor include any filming or recording of the public seating area. Please switch mobile phones to silent. Microphones. Councillors and officers are reminded to use their microphones when speaking for the benefit of all present. I'd now like to ask Pastor Neil Swettenham to offer the prayers for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's pray. Lord God, I pray that tonight this council chamber may be a space of grace. I pray there may be openness to different ideas, creative collaboration from a variety of perspectives that will enable true partnership working, kindness and respect that will facilitate the honest exchange of views, wisdom in the consideration of complex problems and competing priorities, and ability to focus on the things that are really important and set aside those that are not, and guidance and provision as difficult choices are made. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Brown, Fisher, Orson and Posnett. Can any member wishing to give apologies for another member indicate they wish to do so by raising their hand?
I've got to say, what can't we? Can't we say?
That Phil,
Councillor Wood's absent as well.
Councillor
Councillor Wood.
And
I did say it was coming, but I don't
No,
know.
just Councillor Wood at this stage.
can they confirm that we have how many?
22.
22 members present in the meeting and any apologies noted. Minutes. To confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 20th of December 22, I propose the minutes are moved. Do I have a proposer, please?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have much pleasure in proposing adoption of the minutes of a council meeting held on the 20th of December. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm very happy to second the minutes from that meeting. Thank you.
Do any members have any comments to make in relation to the accuracy of the minutes? No. I can confirm that no other members or officers are indicating a request to speak and proceed to a vote, please. All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions?
2 abstentions. Yeah, 3 abstentions. Yeah. Thank you. So that's carried.
I can now confirm that the minutes have been carried. Thank you. Declarations of interest. If any members would like to indicate that they have an interest to declare, could they please do so by raising their hand? Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be leaving the room on item 9 because I'm a council tenant. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Illingworth.
Same word back to me.
Pardon?
Just clarify which item Councillor Illingworth leaving for. Is it item 9?
Councillor Illingworth, is that for item 9?
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Item 4, Mayor's announcements. You'll be pleased to note then it won't be as long-winded as last time. The 20th of December to the 23rd of February. 24th of December, we went to Gretton Court, and that was a nice meeting with all the people there. And later on in the year, we did actually see people who said thank you for going to see the parents at that meeting, at that Gretton Court that day. We then followed on with the Deputy Mayor, went to the midnight mass at Melton Church, where the Lord Lieutenant Mike Capper was there. We were possibly a few minutes later, and when I went and sat next to Mike, he said, "Oh, I thought you'd stood me up on the evening." So yes, but we were there, and it was very nice. Thank you. Then we went, had the Mayor's quiz night here. That was really well attended with 120 people. And we raised £761.70 for my charities. Thank you. We went to John Fernley's Arts and Performance concert. That was really well. I can't really believe how good a lot of these youth we've got in the town at the minute. We've got some really high standards of dance and singing. We then went to Oby and Wigston Civic Service. That was quite interesting because I didn't realise Wigston was built in 1880 from a greenfield site. A wealthy businessman decided he wanted to use that site. He built all the houses, the church, the shops, he built the schools, and he built the factories for everybody to work in. And so it's like a new town in that time. We went to Harby Pantomime. This is something we go to most years, but it's nice to see that the villages are doing things as well as the town. And it's a really enjoyable evening. We then went to Councillor Helen Crawford in Bourne, charity race night. This is possibly what people would say is out of the area for a mayor to go to, but it's quite interesting to note that when you go out of the site, that people want to come to visit Melton, and it's noticeable that Melton is a place that they want to come to. One chap was saying, one of the councillors, that he likes the poultry market. He goes to the market and then he stays and has a meal in the town and makes a full day of it. And so you don't know what you're bringing into the town when you go out of the area. We then went to the Melton Lions Seniors. That was at Melton Theatre, their variety concert. Once again, there was the dance and performance group from Melton Schools and the ukulele band and the choral society, and that was a really extremely well attended. I mean, the place was full, and you got your free ice cream in the half time, so that was even better. So that's the end of my mayor's announcements for this time. Now move on to leaders' announcements, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, with a leader unable to attend this evening, it falls to me to provide his update at tonight's meeting. Since the last meeting, we've had a number of significant and positive developments, which I'm pleased to be able to report. Firstly, I'm delighted to confirm that we have been shortlisted in this year's prestigious LGC Awards in the Most Improved Council category. This is fantastic recognition of the tremendous progress we've made over recent years, and I'd like to congratulate all officers and members for this terrific achievement. There were over 700 submissions across 22 categories for the awards, and we are one of only 5 councils to have been shortlisted in this category. As finalists, we are now required to present to a judging panel in April before finding out whether we have won in June. Since the last council meeting, we also had the brilliant news regarding the success of our Levelling Up Fund bid. This will see Melton receive a share of £23 million to invest in the stockyard development, theatre improvements, and enhance rural transport links with Rutland. Again, can I congratulate our officers for developing such a strong and credible bid. We have recently received further details on the next steps from government, and these are currently being reviewed. The Levelling Up Fund board, including leaders and chief executives from both Rutland and Melton, met earlier this week, and our intention is to receive a formal update at Cabinet in March, with a view to confirm acceptance of a grant at Council later that month. The leader is also due to attend the Audit and Standards Committee at the end of March, so we can consider the role that committee will play in supporting effective oversight and governance of this important project. At Cabinet earlier this month, we considered an update on our asset development programme. Since the County Council left 18 months ago and the adoption of our hybrid working model, we, like many organisations, need less office space. and therefore maintaining the status quo is not an option and does not represent good value for money. Recognizing this in the update on the asset development program we received in April last year, full council made an explicit commitment to explore commercial options for greater utilization of Parkside, so we could cut costs while also boosting the local economy. Since then, we've been reviewing options which seek to strike the right balance between costs and benefit, both for council and the wider community. This work was supported by our scrutiny colleagues through a workshop in November last year. The Cabinet report summarised the analysis, and without doubt, the hotel represents an exciting and innovative option that should be explored further. This is, though, an important decision and one we must get right. So at our meeting, we agreed to build on the options appraisal already undertaken, and before proceeding to the next stage, to bring back a more detailed analysis on the alternate options to our June meeting. This will include an economic impact assessment, and I recognise we've got a motion on this later in our agenda. It is worth reiterating that any final decision on the best option for the site will be reserved for full council in due course. At our last council meeting, we approved investment in our new CCTV cameras, and installation has already started, and the new system is on track to be operational next month. Our cost of living work continues, and we are mobilising various projects within our UK SPF investment plan, with updates on both also due to be considered at the Cabinet in March. Earlier this week, and following the success of our Jubilee Grant Scheme, we launched our Coronation Grant Fund, which will support community groups, charities and parish councils who want to hold their own coronation celebrations, events or projects. More details are on the website, and bids need to be submitted by Monday, the 20th of March. And finally, it won't, I'm sure, have escaped members' attention that we are approaching another election in May. You will be aware that the Election Act 2022 has introduced new requirements for voter ID, and we are promoting the new requirement widely through our social media channels. We have also ensured coverage in the Melton Times, and every household in the borough will receive explicit notification of the new requirement on their poll card. The council will continue to do all it can to ensure anyone who wishes to vote is able to do so in May. On behalf of our Chief Executive and Returning Officer, can I also highlight that there is a prospective candidates and agents briefing on the 3rd of March at 5:30 in the Council Chamber. The session is available to anyone who is considering standing for elections in May. Please contact our elections team if we wish to reserve a place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Public question time. There were no questions have been received. Questions from members. No questions have been received. Item 8. Motions on notice. There are 2 motions on notice to hear this evening. I will take each one in turn. The first motion we have is the anti-bullying motion, and I invite Councillor Higgins to propose and outline the motion. The mover of an on-notice motion may speak for up to 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With your permission, I'd just like to pay tribute to thank you very much. Yes, just before I put the motion to full council, I'd like to pay tribute to a parishioner of mine, constituent, friend and distant relative as well, as I was saying to you earlier, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Andy Holland. That's actually not his real name, by the way. I think it's Richard. But then there were so many people who never go by their names of that generation. It all seems to be in the farming community, though. So maybe you would be able to enlighten us why that is. But Andy would never tell me why. However, Andy was a parish council for Twyford and Thorpe Parish Council. He was a stalwart of the farming community as well as the village of Twyford. His passions very much was promoting British farming. He served for the NFU in various positions. When British beef was banned across the world. Andy was one of those people who would go anywhere and everywhere to promote British beef, especially in the new standards that were adopted in the 90s. And he always said that British beef never did him any harm. When we've been promoting Melton in the Discover Melton branding, there is a picture in the council literature, which I showed his son, John. And Andy is in the cattle market where he's got some of flowers that his daughter-in-law, Susie, would be selling, as she sells them every Tuesday. I haven't got that picture here with me, but it is quite unique, where Andy's got that great beaming smile that everyone will know, and he's got the plant pot on his head. And if that doesn't promote how Melton sort of is, I don't know what does. Other things that Andy cared passionately about was the Tuesday car parking charges, which have now been removed, which had the premium on. And locally, he had the entire knowledge of the sewer works in the village, because I believe he built them when they first came to the village all those years ago. And those who do know Andy, or those who probably only knew Andy from a distance, would know him for his very unique laugh. So paying tribute to Andy, and also my condolences go out to his wife, Pat, his daughter, Jane, his son, John, daughter-in-law, Susie, and his grandchildren. I'll just give a few seconds before I go to the motion. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion on notice, as set out in the order paper and the paper for councillors, I understand with the motion, I can present the motion. It then gets seconded. There's if there is a debate, there's a debate, and then I can come back to any particular points that may be raised. I think this is one of those motions that's very important. It goes beyond all boundaries and people in regards to, it could be happening to young and old people. We see it happen in schools and also care homes with residents who are very vulnerable, and we've seen that there. But it can also take place in many different other aspects as well. And it's time that we keep finding where bullies are, standing up to them, rooting them out. So bullying does not thrive. And those who feel that bullying should thrive are also exposed. Bullying and victimization comes in various forms, and it can be described as offensive, intimidating, malicious, or insulting. It can be an abuse or misuse of power, as I was saying earlier, and it undermines, humiliates, or causes physical and emotional harm to someone. Bullying might be a regular pattern of behavior or a one-off incident. It can happen face-to-face on social media, in emails or calls, and it can happen in work and other work-related situations, in schools, in our homes, and also in a domestic environment. It can happen within families, and it's not always obvious or noticed by others. So examples of bullying are listed in the paper there. But bullying can have a significant impact on the well-being of the public, but also it can have an impact on where we are right now. It can have an impact on officers or councillors who are subject to it. And such behaviour in the workplace, or organisations, at home, in public, are not acceptable. And particularly from public office holders with responsibilities to show leadership. And we should challenge those who do not show leadership when that arises. It is also a broader issue, given that individuals subject to bullying or harassment may be pressured to make decisions or act in ways that are not in the public interest, or in the interest of their wider family, friends, colleagues, or organisations. As such, it is important that bullying and harassment are dealt with effectively, stamped out, and I do note that we have the Stamp It Out livery in our main reception. And councillors walk by that every time they come into the building. The ACAS definition, which is the Advisory, Conciliation and Arbitration Service, have codified bullying with a very helpful definition, as there is no statutory definition of bullying. It is the offensive, intimidating, malicious or insulting behaviour an abuse or misuse of power through means to undermine, humiliate, denigrate, or injure the recipient or recipients. The examples that we hear, see, read about are spreading malicious rumours, making reckless comments which are false or have no basis to be made, are insulting or denigrating to someone by word or falsehood or their behaviour. A constant critical projection about someone to others who do not need to know. And that example, for example, is it's all that rumour mill. So, oh, I heard someone do this. Oh, I heard someone do that. And we all know that type of person who does that. They make phone calls, they do it on social media, they go into various social outings, and they do it and whispering. And sometimes they do it publicly. Ridiculing and demeaning someone by labels or names, picking on them, or setting them up to fail. Exclusion or victimization, and the latter by targeting and even constantly persecuting them. Unfair treatment, and as I've said before, the misuse of power or position, be that in the domestic environment, which is very, very prevalent and needs to be stamped out, in schools, where we see that of children, as I said earlier, in the care homes and organisations. And what could it do? At the very ultimate part, it can cause such severe harm that that individual may do something that is very critical to their well-being. And they need protecting, and they need support. And while they are getting support, or maybe that they need support, and that could be in a wide range of forms, by standing shoulder to shoulder with them, that then means that the bullies cannot win, and that you have strength in numbers. So what is needed for a bully or a hostile environment that they create to thrive? It's quite a simple ingredient. Namely, it's for good people to turn a blind eye. It's a very well-known saying that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. And then obviously, anything else, it just needs other people to stand up and be counted. Or more sinisterly, it's those who gang up on those with for the ringleaders to seek to destroy, pick on, or humiliate. Those bullies get their power from either bystanders or sycophants who cannot see the reason to what is in front of them. We've seen this in history, and recently, as President Putin is a current example at its most sinister in current life. But in our own lives, what does that look like? Well, it looks like very similarly to what Putin does, blaming someone else, telling wholesale untruths, and pretending the evidence doesn't exist. And even when the evidence does exist, then destroying that evidence to try and protect themselves. And following this motion, I was contacted by an anti-bullying organisation. And some of the things I'm going to say now, I'm not saying that this is particularly from me, but this was some tips that they were saying, because obviously if people are listening to this, they were saying ways to tackle that behaviour. So first of all, confront the bully in public. And we see that a lot. That once you confront the bully in public, they don't have anywhere to turn. Stand up and be confident. Bullies thrive on the person's insecurity and will often pick on people who they think are easy targets. For example, people who mug people in the streets or physically standing up to them, you're sending a message that you're not afraid. Show the bully that you don't care and tell someone, please don't suffer alone. By suffering alone can make the problems feel 10 times worse, and that you have the whole world on your shoulder.
2 minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm nearly finished. Bring a friend or a trusted person with you when you confront the bully. Interrupt the bully when bullying when it happens. Do not wait for later. Whether you see someone else being bullied or someone behaving in a way that you do not appreciate, act in the moment and be specific. So, Mr. Mayor and full council, I put this motion to everyone to consider. I understand, obviously, that we're an organisation, we have employees, we have duties of care to the public, but as I said, it goes very, very wide. It goes from the very base of a domestic situation where sometimes there are people who even bully their own children or people who bully other people's children. It goes all the way to schools, children on children. And then if you breed bullies that way, they carry on and on and on. And finally, Mr. Mayor.
1 minute, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Natasha. Finally, Mr. Mayor, in terms of tackling bullying and the difficulties that the victims have, we should stand shoulder to shoulder with those people. And for example, from an international stage, we stand shoulder to shoulder with the Ukrainians and anyone else who wants to be bullied by any dictator or despot or leader who's absolutely out of his mind with megalomaniac power, or just that bully that's in the street, or those who want to create harm to others for nothing more than sheer enjoyment. Thank you very much.
I will now invite Councillor Faulkner to second the motion. Would you like to provide your speech now or reserve until later in the debate?
Thank you very much. I'll speak now. I've not got a great deal to say, but I was very pleased when Councillor Higgins asked me to second the motion, because in my day job, we transport a lot of vulnerable children who have had some severe bullying in their lives already. And they've been moved out of mainstream education into specialist units now to get them away from the bullying, and to see the difference it makes when they're in an environment where they are no longer bullied is fantastic. So I'm very pleased to second this motion.
Thank you. I will now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak. Please note, any speeches must not exceed 5 minutes, and in the interests of fairness, I will be sticking to this strictly as we have a busy agenda this evening. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To start with, I do remember Andy Holland with fondness, and I would like to add my condolences to his family, to those of Councillor Higgins. Mr. Mayor, I welcome this motion. We all agree that bullying is intolerable, and I'm confident that officers will look at how this motion fits in with the context of our anti-bullying policies and our members' code of conduct. Thank you.
Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm standing up now to a bully. In 2021, I was bullied by Councillor Higgins by sending an email to me.
I'm sorry, we're not here to mention names or
Well,
to, this is just the
Well, it's
motion
been
we've got
my
here on
chance
this
to
evening.
say about bullying. Bullying, he's had 10 minutes to say.
We can't make it a personal thing. It's just here for the
Well,
motion that we've got.
I'm going to talk about bullying then, right? It talks about bullying. I received an email in 2021.
You're still referring to a personal thing.
Well, I'll put it in a
Sorry, Steve.
complaint then, Mr. Mayor, right, to the council, because when I made a complaint in the first place, it didn't go any further, and it should have done. It should have been looked into by this council, and it wasn't. And I was very, very upset about it. Mr. Councillor Evans put a complaint in, nothing was done. I'll go no further. I will put a complaint into this council.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members. Naturally, I support this motion. Bullying and harassment affects people of all ages and backgrounds, as Councillor Higgins has said. However, many people unfortunately still hold the belief that this does only take place in the playground. Therefore, adults are less likely to recognise when they are being bullied or harassed and have been victims of such behaviour. I would like to take this opportunity to expand on a few characteristics of bullying, if I may. This can also come in the form of deliberately trying to damage a person's reputation or career, digging up irrelevant information on a person's past with the intent to sully this person's reputation or career, contacting people's places of work with the intent to damage a person's reputation or career, and making up lies about a person's personal life with the intent to tarnish their reputation. I'm so pleased that this motion has come forward, as it will be a really positive addition to the equality and diversity training that I believe the majority of members took back in October. I would encourage all of my colleagues who, upon hearing this motion and the subsequent debate, have recognised that they are victims of bullying and harassment to contact the relevant officers and request support for what they have been through. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Glancy.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'll keep this brief, but we've already heard different definitions of bullying. But I'd just like to say that the simple definition of bullying is the use of force, threat, or coercion to abuse, intimidate, or aggressively dominate others. The behaviour is often repeated and habitual. One essential prerequisite is the perception by the bully or by others of an imbalance of social or physical power, which distinguishes bullying from conflict. So broadly speaking, bullying and harassment are defined as certain behaviours and actions which cause someone to feel either intimidated or offended. Now, I have witnessed a lot of this in my lifetime, and quite a lot recently. They are umbrella terms which cover a wide range of behaviours, such as spreading rumours, isolating someone, and making derogatory remarks. Now, all of these are totally unacceptable in the workplace, in schools, or anywhere in society. So in my view, bullying is in any shape or form is unacceptable. Unfortunately, the reality is bullying exists. Therefore, I fully support the anti-bullying motion before us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's be clear, we keep going over these things time after time. We have a constitution. It's quite clear in that constitution that bullying will not be tolerated in this organisation. We all make mistakes, we all do that. But I know, and I look hard at the chief exec, and I know that he believes that bullying should be stamped out wherever possible, and he does so with full force. I thank the proposer for this motion. Although I wonder where it's directed. I have no problems with it. Every word of this and everything is right. The most common form of bullying, though, is where it's based on a group, whether it's females, on the colour of their skin, or religion. And that is intolerable and one of the most common forms of discrimination and bullying. And to actually do that in public, in a public meeting, is unacceptable. Like calling someone in a public meeting a liar, or calling a group of people in that meeting to stand up because of their sex or religion or the color of their skin. Neither of those things, any of those things, are acceptable. And the one thing I think that this has highlighted to me is how we deal with it. Because my real concern is when we do find a bully, and what do? We need to make certain that the apology is given at a prompt time and without reservation, because it is not whether that person feels insulted or not. It should be an unconditional apology from that person. Otherwise, there should be action taken. And that's what I believe, because a bully will only hide behind a conditional sorry, rather than actually give an unconditional public one, which is what we as a council should ask for, especially when that person who's done it is in a position of power. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. a very, very long time ago, when I was a little girl, at a school in Melton, there was one particular teacher which we didn't like very much, but she used to pick on one child, one girl. And I don't know why, because believe it or not, I was a little bit shy, but I got so angry at this time. And I got up and said to this teacher, will you stop it? Because she can't help doing this or she can't help doing that. And sat down, and there was so much silence, but I must say that that teacher never bullied that girl again. And it is so important that this is stamped out, whatever organisation it might be, and whoever it is. I just think that this motion, yes, we have it in our constitution, but we really, really have to look so seriously of any bullying at all. And I hope that if there are, I'm lost my track now, but if there are any complaints to the council, then they shouldn't be just put on the back burner. They should be seen and spoken about and sorted immediately. Thank you.
Councillor Freer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just say, without any hidden agenda, I support the motion and happy for us to go through to the vote. Thank you.
Have any other members got any wish to speak, please? Councillor Cumbers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm very, very pleased to see this motion. And I think we all recognise how important it is to fight bullying. And very often, of course, bullies are cowards, you know, when they are challenged. But I must have a little sort of comment about something that Councillor Higgins said when I do like this expression about the evil to succeed. It just needs good men to stay silent. But of course, it's not just good men either. It's good women, you know, and we all need to challenge that horrible sort of behaviour. Bullying is hateful. It destroys lives, you know, whether it's children or whether it's old people or whatever, you know. And it'll be good one day if we can think perhaps that there will be no more bullying. I doubt it, because there are always people who've got something sort of wrong with them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Have any other members wish to speak? No. Right.
Yeah, Councillor Higgins has the right to reply.
Yeah, Councillor Higgins, you now can reply. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members, for that. Some really good points to be made. I think I'll just go through them. So, Melise, thank you very much for supporting this motion and for your comments there. Councillor Carter, I'm very happy to have a meeting with the monitoring officer. I think that position was very, very clear. That was what was reported, and I sent that to you as yourself. But again, if you want to talk about, I'm very happy to speak that with the monitoring officer. It was looked at, but equally, I think everything that was in that email was very expressly put. That is completely different. Councillor Smith, I thought your part in all that was absolutely momentous, actually, because you're right, is people don't realise about how they're being bullied, and when people are sullying their names, and people do contact people's employers, and I know that happened to Councillor Wilkinson, and that was absolutely disgraceful at the time that happened, and I think that was because other issues were happening, and people do take targets on councillors as well. Councillor Glancy, thanks very much for your comments. I think we've raised some of the points earlier.
Mr. Order, Mr. Mayor. He's naming people. It's happened such and such. I was pulled down for it, naming. And it's not.
Yeah, okay, I'm happy to
acceptable.
withdraw that.
It's getting
Can
away
we
with
just
naming people.
withdraw any names,
Yeah,
please?
yeah, no, that's fine. But I did support the individual when that happened. So I stood shoulder to shoulder with that individual. Councillor Evans, I'm glad you said we have a constitution and we should follow it through. You mentioned some other points, and to be honest, I think you don't actually know. And as I've tried to explain, there is a whole load of witness testimony here. No, you haven't.
Excuse me,
But,
we're not here to discuss anything else.
I'm
We're
just
just
going
here
to go
to
on that
discuss the
because
motion.
he was making a particular point, and that's the problem. If you don't see what was going on and you don't see all the evidence, you've got to be very careful. I'm absolutely sticking to the motion. You have to be careful. Elaine, I like the point about teachers do bully children, and we have seen that, and it can be quite nasty as well. And it remembers, children remember that, and for you to come out and say that, really well spoke. And Councillor Cumbers, I think you've wrapped it up absolutely succinctly. To go back to the bullying motion, it's when people take whatever they've been told and keep projecting and keep projecting, not wanting to see what's in front of them, not wanting to take other information that's in, not wanting that person to be heard. And that's why we have independent processes and things like that. And it's like Peter said, where the seconder of the motion, we take them out of that situation. We give them that safe space so they can express themselves in that safe environment. We don't just jump to conclusions. And also sometimes people say things which is what we were saying at the start, as Elaine was saying, they say things to bully that person. And then the person who is the victim of that is projected on that. And then they get blamed for being that victim. And then they're not allowed to speak, and they're not allowed to explain themselves, whatever. And there are very good reasons for that. So I very much commend this motion to that. And we should not isolate people. We should listen to what people have to say, and we should have that debate rather than trying to keep poking people, trying to hurt people and trying to denigrate people. And so I think this is a very good motion, and I'm very pleased for all those positive contributions to it and those positive individual cases where they talked about themselves individually, because that shows that we could stand up to those bullies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now proceed to a vote, please. All those in favour?
In favour.
Any against? Any abstentions?
2 abstentions.
2. I can now confirm the outcome and that the motion is carried. Thank you. The second motion is a proposal for diversification of the Parkside offices motion. I invite Councillor Faulkner to propose and outline the motion. The mover of the on notice motion may speak for up to 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, could you just ask Councillor Evans just to stop barracking over here? You've just been pointing. Please just behave yourself. Thank you.
Can I just call it to order, please? Because Councillor Faulkner wasn't wanting to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to propose the motion on notice as in the papers regarding the diversification of Parkside. The reasons for bringing the motion are because I want to make sure that this council gets sufficient information regarding the current state of affairs with hotels in the town, because following hearing about this option, I contacted the hotels in the town, and they are very, very disappointed about this, that they hadn't already been contacted before it had got to the stage it has, because basically they're on their knees. they can't see where there's a need for any more hotel spaces in this town, simply because they are not even breaking even at the moment. Their room fulfillment is so low at times that it's ridiculous. The only times that they are ever full is when we have special events on, which is 2 or 3 times a year when they are full. And the addition of another hotel that appears to be being built by this council to lease out to another group I think is a poor way of spending our money. There are far better ways of doing so. I don't know if you're aware of that. Melton Matters put a poll up on Facebook this last week, of asking people what they thought the place should be used for. Because it's absolutely right. The status quo is not an option. But we do need to look at options that are going to benefit the town more. And 45% of the people that responded, there was nearly 300 respondents, suggested the leisure part of it, like the bowling alley type thing and other leisure activities to be held here. And another 27% said offices. Yes, and I know that in the papers that were presented, it said that there was adequate provision for offices in the town with the Pera building. But having said that, the hotels seem to think that there's adequate provision for hotels in the town without the addition of another one. If another hotel chain wants to come to the town, then they should be able to do so in the way that others do, and do it all on their own back by finding their own land and doing their own work, building their own hotel, and then finding their own staff to run it and things like that. Because at the moment, I think if we carry on with the hotel option, we're going to see the end of at least 2 of the 3 independent hotels in the town. And that's what they've told me. So I'd like to recommend this motion and hope everybody supports. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now invite Councillor Lumley to second the motion. We'd like to provide your speech now or reserve for the later in the debate.
Mr. Mayor, just happy to second this motion. Just to make it absolutely clear, I'm supporting this, but obviously we are a free country. If any organisation wants to, actually sort of like build their own hotel, they're extremely welcome to. This isn't trying to restrict any hotel chain from coming to Melton. It's just having I think it's important to have a review of this idea. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand who wish to indicate to speak. Please note any speeches must not exceed 5 minutes, and in the interest of fairness, I will be sticking strictly to this rule as we have a busy agenda. Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I welcome this motion, and as a member of a current cabinet, I can assure members that the information requested will be made available to those who are members of a cabinet in June 2023. Thank you.
Are there any other?
Yeah, thank you. I think the motion at full council has been very timely, because I think seeing on social media and the businesses, I think rightly or wrongly, I think a lot of the members of the public thought, where was this coming from, this idea? And I don't think the council quite necessarily have got its rationale thinking about it. I'm very pleased that the proposer and seconder have acknowledged that it is free market economics, and they're not trying to stifle that. Equally, the council must make use of its assets and looking at ways, and that could mean a hotel. It could mean a hotel. It could mean a hotel on this site, but it could mean I know there was research looking in hotels on other council sites as well. But I think, as Councillor Faulkner was saying, and what I think was concerning to some members, and that was raised because some members feel that the only way we get to debate is now through email, because either you're restricted from either committees or anything else, or there's no forum to debate these things properly. And so that's why I think this motion's been borne out, because of the emails that were going around. That all said, and I think thank the research that Councillor Faulkner did, because it did sort of come to my mind that this could be a really good idea that the council's embarking on, but it's got to explain itself. And the concern I had, and many other people were having, is, as Councillor Faulkner eloquently put, we were looking to do it seemed to me on what was put forward that we were going to pay towards doing the business case for the company to do that, where normally, and I'm not going to mention any hotel names, but especially the national or international chains, they do that themselves. So it wasn't really clear what the public pound was going to be paying for if that motion went through Cabinet as it did. And obviously Cabinet didn't, they took more counsel on that. Going back to that, I think if we're coming up with these kind of ideas again, and I think also when we've had other issues such as the great news about the funding that we've had from the fairer funding, sometimes the public doesn't understand what that actually can mean. So we get a little bit of resistance to it. And I think we've got to try and bring people with us or explain it a bit more. And how does that benefit them? So how does it benefit them in terms of jobs, the footfall? And then as Councillor Faulkner said, it wasn't clear to many of the people there of how many extra meals was it going to create, because what the council's were projecting in its public PR exercise. But if you're taking a member who was going to book a hotel in the Harborough Hotel and they were going to stay here, they were still going to spend the same money. So it wasn't extra revenue. The town probably would have just brought the same amount of people. And I think if we're going to go down this route, how are we going to get more people coming to Melton? And I think the council's got a really good story there, and it's on that journey. But how are we going to get more people in? How are we going to get people to stay overnight? And I know the work that Pranali and her team do is very, very good at that. And people who stay overnight will spend more money in the town, and that will mean more jobs, make Melton a lot more vibrant. And so people domestically who stay here will have a better environment. And that's where the aim's got to go. And I think we've just got to make sure that we communicate that really, really effectively to the public and our businesses, and especially our hotel businesses, because if they've got to invest in here, and we've got to give them the confidence to keep investing in here as well. Thank you.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also would like to thank Councillor Faulkner for his work he's done to bring this motion and to do the research onto it. I think it's very important. If I could step back a bit, the reason all of this has come about is because once again, this council, not only in housing, we're now moving forward, and we are the most improved council around, in my opinion. We've now also got an asset development plan. We've got our assets together, something that this council has never really had. And that's the reason we're where we are now. And we're looking at them and seeing if we're getting value for money from Phoenix House, Parkside, Cove, all of them. And it's a very important equation we do. My personal feeling at the moment is, rather like other councillors, I don't think we're quite there yet. Parkside, we've got to do something with it. We're right. You only have to see that. But I think we've got to get this right, because it's probably one of the biggest decisions this council will make in the next decade. And if we get it wrong, it could be a disaster. So we need to get it right. And my concerns was even more highlighted when I realised, rather like Councillor Faulkner did, that we'd be paying for a lot of this. It would be a high-risk venture. In other words, I looked at the plan and I realised we were the one who'd convert it into a hotel, which means we would have to find the finance to do that and then wait for the payback in the lease terms, because we'd be leasing it to the house. I find that very troubling to convey as councillors to the members of public that we're borrowing a huge amount of money, with obviously inflation being where it is, and hoping for a payback and hoping that the company actually can afford to pay us back. That's where my concerns are. I think this needs to go back. We need to look hard at Parkside, listen to what's been said, and find a plan that works without us shelling out, whether it's consultants or whether it's real money, to get this off the ground, because I don't think the public will bear us spending money on building a hotel here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Illingworth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Almost took my breath away, that, and it's my own fault for not realising that the prospect of us putting all the money up and donkey work in and then waiting for someone to come. Of course, they're going to bite their hand off. However expensive and attractive the lease might look to us, appear to us, we shouldn't be doing this is a high risk project, and I firmly believe that we should be looking at 0 to low risk on this. Thank you for bringing that up tonight. I apologize for my ignorance. I'm glad I know now. So yeah, I just think that the public of Melton, our perception would just go even further down with the public that we are elected to serve their best interests. Thank you. Oh, while I'm on, could I clarify something? Sorry. Forgive me for being a little confused. That declaration of interest on item 9 is because of rent setting. I believe that the same criteria applies to 13, the council tax setting. So I'll be leaving for that one. Is that necessary? Yeah, but you're not all council tenants.
No, we all pay council tax.
All right, so I'm okay to stay for that one. Righto. Oh, can you remember when you used to be able to understand me?
Councillor Chandler.
No, it was
Yeah, that's the Charlie.
down.
I'll be very brief. This has been a lot of hot air, I believe. The timing of it was abominable. We shouldn't be making major decisions before an election. I think it was absolutely appalling the way this was leaked, if that's the right expression. It should have been kept under wraps and carried forward to the next council. And that thankfully it's going to be, from what the deputy leader has said. But it was certainly not a decision that should have been taken virtually overnight by people who possibly won't be here in 6 weeks' time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Glancy.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Yes, you may be surprised, Councillor Evans, but for once I totally agree with you. You may recall that I asked a number of questions about this venture when it first came to light, what was actually proposed. And I still think that accepting the financial risks on this project is totally out of order. We cannot be spending taxpayers' money and local people's money on something that we should not be accepting the financial risk for. If somebody wants to come here and if they want to use Parkside, then that is their risk. It is not ours. There's a lot of other things we can do with Parkside. But if we do decide, or the future council decides on a hotel, then it should be the people coming in for the hotel to take that risk up, not for us to outlay the funding, borrow, and then eventually hope that we're going to get the money back. I think that is unacceptable.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's really a question to the deputy leader. Am I right in thinking that you said that the cabinet will be telling us, because I may have got this wrong, but this is what I heard. This is so important for everybody, not just 6 people. I know I don't like a cabinet system, never have, and hope that the that after the election, it will be brought back to a sensible committee system. But I just couldn't believe it that 6 people would be saying what would happen. Whether that wasn't right, I don't know,
If
but
you just
if general public could perhaps
just
hear.
keep to the
Thank you.
motion then.
Yeah, that's all. I just wanted to ask a question.
Thank you. I know the leader's speech went on for quite a long time, but in there was, I recognize we got a motion on this later in our agenda. It's worth reiterating that any final decision on the best option for the site will be reserved for full council in due course. But the cabinet will, of course, consider it in June. Thank you.
Thank you.
Whoever is on the cabinet at the time.
Councillor Freer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whilst I support the motion, I think it's very wise, and I didn't say this before now, but I was very appreciative of reading everyone's comments who inputted with emails to bring that to everyone's attention to say, let's look at more options, let's investigate this more. The economic impact assessment is going to be so important when we're looking at all the different options and looking towards making a decision, especially when and I'm happy that it's going to come to full council so everyone can vote on the final decision on this. The question I have got though is about bullet point 2 and taking the motion to include Scorford Hall. A motion, I've never known a motion that says specifically we have to have a date. A motion's usually just something you take to council for them to consider. And we won't know, we may not know at that point whether there will be a date for Scorford Hall to become available as a hotel. So I just wanted to clarify that. I don't know whether that's a question to the person who put the motion forward or somebody else, but I just wanted that point clarified before I vote on it. Thank you.
Are there any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Converse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Councillor Freer talking about or suggesting that all options are looked at, and I think that's very, very important. But I do remember some members who've been here a while would remember perhaps, I think it was Waitrose wanted to build on the library site, and I don't think we were allowed even to consider it because research showed that there wasn't a need. And I think perhaps the same sort of research should be done, because there's no point in starting a new business which is going to knock out existing business, and this can happen. You get an area can be saturated with a particular thing. So I don't know what happened to that legislation, because I don't know, it didn't seem to work when we had Lidl's coming, and Aldi's, in the same way that it was considered when Waitrose was coming. But perhaps, so I don't know, but these things should be considered. And current businesses, we should be supporting them, and we don't want them harmed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other councillors wish to speak? You've already had one go, John.
Did he use all 5 minutes?
that was your prerogative at the time. Thank you. If we can we now move to the mover, please, just to clarify. It does say actually in the motion it's subject to availability, so that doesn't include any dates in specific.
Exactly what I was going to point out. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In answer to the question raised by Councillor Freer, the date is in there because that is the date that Cabinet are supposed to be re-looking at the situation. So I wanted as much information to be provided to Cabinet at that time. Obviously, we won't necessarily know the date that Scorford Hall will be coming back online, but we can look at the impact it's going to have for when it does come back online. I hope that clarifies that. Other than that, I would just like to thank everybody for their input into the motion, and I hope everybody will support it. And let's go to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now proceed to a vote, please. All those in favour?
Yeah, unanimous.
Any against? Any abstentions? No. I will now confirm that the motion has been carried. Thank you. Item 9.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be leaving the room now.
Thank you.
That's limpy.
In the absence of the portfolio holder for housing and landlord services, I invite Councillor de Burgh to present the Cabinet recommendations to Council on the revenue budget proposals 23-24 housing revenue account. Councillor de Burgh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, you'll all recall some years ago representations being made by the Director of Corporate Services and myself for HRA expenditure to be based on a business plan based on a stock condition survey. I'm delighted to report that with the business plan and AMP having been finalised and approved last year, that the budget proposals set out in this report are in line with the policies and principles contained in that plan, which target keeping our housing stock in the best possible condition. It was a tremendous achievement by Michelle and her team, and we should congratulate them for it. Members, success in the refurbishment and maintenance arena, together with inflationary pressures, equals tremendous cost. And if you look at the chart on page 23 of the paper, you will see that our HRA reserves, currently robust at 7.56 million, will be rapidly eaten away to a forecast 1.377 million in 2026-27, a mere 4 years away. And that is just by maintaining our stock at an appropriate level. Members, we can't afford to become complacent. Our rents, which have been held down over recent years, have to be adjusted to meet the massive financial pressure we are facing. Fortunately, government policy provides clear guidance on the level of increase that we should apply, and our proposals are in line with that policy. It is, however, recognised that this will add a heavy burden to some tenants, and I'm advised that officers have discussed the rent increase proposals with tenant representatives and tenants. Understandably, tenants have expressed concern about the rising cost of living, particularly for those who are more vulnerable. We have heard their concerns clearly, and it is for this reason that a hardship fund is being implemented for any who are experiencing serious hardship. Mr. Mayor, members, in the confirmed knowledge that a support package is being put in place for those who face difficulties, I'm comfortable supporting the proposals set out in this report and move that Council approves the recommendations at 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5 and 2.6. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please?
Mr. Mayor, I have much pleasure in seconding those recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak, please. Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, it's just a relatively quick one, and I'll be supporting the motion, but acknowledging that the percentage increase is going to probably come to many as a bit of a shock. But there is a widespread issue in the rented sector, which has been building up for many, many years. And depending on what the proposer and seconder say, I think that councils do need to inform government because, and while I am a landlord myself, I'm not saying it in relation to that, but a lot of people are exiting the private rented sector. And what we may see a lot in here is because of the pet foods generation of coming to that retirement stage, they're starting to sell their stock off in and around Melton. That's putting pressure then on the public sector, which is obviously our housing and housing associations and any of the remaining rental sector. So we're going to have a supply issue in and around Melton. I'm pleased that obviously the housing is being delivered. But if we're not careful, we're going to start to see people in real jeopardy of homelessness. And I know Councillor Faulkner is a huge champion of supporting those there. So I'm glad that there's the hardship fund. But just putting the rents up and looking after the HRA, it's got to go hand in hand with trying to support the housing sector on a wider scale. But we're not going to do that just on our own. It's going to have to be a more strategic with neighbouring councils, partners, but the government's got to get a grip of this as well, because while interest rates are going up, there are probably people who are going to start to struggle to keep those mortgage payments because people have been used to very low mortgage payments for a very long time, or interest payments for a very long time, and have borrowed lots of money. So I'm quite concerned that it's going to start to have a real impact on other parts of the council resources, which isn't just in the HRA. So I think it's very good that we're investing in it. It's very concerning that it goes from 7.5 million to just under 1.4 million, but that's a huge amount of investment. But if we're not careful, this is going to result in real people having real difficulties. And this council has very limited resources to support them all. So the increase that the government has allowed, which is in line with what the government has said, is going to come as a bit of a shock to many people. But equally, if the council doesn't do that, then it's going to have no money to do the repairs on the housing as well, which will be fixing boilers, fixing kitchens, all the other stuff. And then we'll get into the state where our housing stock isn't fit for purpose. And poor housing stock also leads to poor health and inequalities there too.
Are there any other members? Councillor Cumbers.
A point of clarification, really. Where's the money for this hardship fund? Where's it coming from? Is it coming from the HRA or is it coming from general taxpayers? If it's coming for general taxpayers, I hope it's not just to help council tenants, because it should be helping all people who are suffering from financial problems. Thank you.
Would you like to respond to that, please?
Mr. Mayor, sorry.
I've just been informed by Sideways Glass, it is coming from the HRA.
Councillor.
Let her finish.
Oh, right, sorry.
Thank you. To say, I'm not quite sure how the other tenants might feel about that. I don't know. I mean, I hope there's been some research. Yeah, perhaps the officer can tell us. Yeah, thank you.
Would you like to respond, please?
Thank you, Councillor Cumbers. Just to reassure you that support to tenants is just one of those things through the hardship fund that we do as a council. So we are actively accessing the household support fund, which is being run across the county, and we've supported a huge number of households, the most of any district in Leicestershire, actually through that fund, supporting tenants and non-tenants, anybody that is experiencing hardship. There's also a range of things we can do, supporting people with debts, supporting people with access to other services, including things around their health and well-being, because clearly financial difficulties can impact on people's well-being also. The reason for the hardship fund is in recognition that it is our rents that are increasing, and that is going to have an impact on our tenants. And we want to make sure there's an additional safety net for those that can't access some of those other things I've said. So I hope that reassures. Thank you.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've been through the last 2 or 3 years an exceptional hard time. We had the pandemic, and then we had Ukraine, then we had the heating. I really feel for people at the moment. I feel for our residents. I feel for our council tenants. 7.5% may not seem a huge amount, but it is very important that we realise that some of our tenants will suffer. And I'm not comfortable, but I know that we need to do this to make the sums meet. We can't keep subsidising things, because we as a council, as the chief exec keeps reminding me, and also Dawn, that we are struggling. So we have to face, once again, this train is still coming down the road. It would be remiss of me not to say at this stage, we came from a bad place, but boy, are we moving to a better place. And I look at one of the officers who's had so much impact in the few years she's been here and changed things around. We have to invest in these housing, because if we don't do it now, it will come back and hit us really hard in the years to come. And if it means we go down to 1 million in 5 years, I'll be very happy with that in a way, because I know our housing stock will have gone from appalling to one of the best in the councils in the UK. And that's what I want too. And I know that Michelle will deliver, if she stays here that long. I hope she does. If will deliver on that promise that she's made to spend the money and get it so all the windows, all the doors, all the kitchens are up to the standard that our tenants deserve in this council. And carry on, please. And I know also that we are dealing as well as we can with the homeless situation and those people who need food when we can do. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very happy with the paper. The few questions sorry, Mr. Mayor. Very happy with the paper. The few questions I've got, the detail I can email the officers for. Got a question on the voucher system. What will the voucher be used for?
So the answer is that at this moment in time, we've not defined that. And the reason is that we want to work with our tenants to understand actually what will work best. So the feedback that we've had from tenants is that a voucher arrangement would be helpful. And we've used our tenant engagement arrangements this week to start to understand what kind of levels, what kind of things might be useful. And we will feed those comments in before a proposal is considered by the portfolio holder, which before we go live with that. And we feel that's really, really important. The other thing we're doing is looking at some good practice from other landlords, so the council landlords, but other housing associations as well, and making sure that any voucher scheme sits alongside that wider package of support that I referred to earlier.
Thank you very much, Director. The only point I've got on this one is that if we give somebody a voucher to go to the shop for £100, there's £50,000. Could we leave ourselves with rent arrears? And would it not be a better position to have a credit against the rent to avoid, if you could consider that particular option, we could end up giving £50,000 out and having £100,000 worth of rent arrears because of the hardship.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. That's helpful feedback and something that we absolutely will take into consideration. The balance we obviously need to strike is that by giving somebody a voucher or any financial support if they're in hardship, crediting their rent account if they're in arrears would not alleviate the hardship. So there's a balancing act. Absolutely take your comments on board. Or make sure we factor that into the process as we develop it. Thank you.
Are there any other members wish to speak? No. We'll now proceed to a vote then, please. All those in favour, please. Any against? Any abstentions? I now confirm that this is a full 22 votes, so it's full in favour for the recommendations. Thank you.
20 years, 20. Yes, 2 members stepped
Ah.
out. So.
Oh, yes, 2 members not. Item 10 then, please. I will now invite the portfolio holder for corporate governance, finance and resources, Councillor de Burgh, to present the Cabinet recommendations to Council on the Cabinet Capital Programme for 22 to 27, General Fund and Capital Strategy for 23-24.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, again. Members, this report recommends some changes to the current year's capital programme and makes modest recommendations for realignment to next year. The proposed expenditure on IT recognises the need to keep our information technology infrastructure up to date so that we may remain resilient in the rapidly changing world. There's been work undertaken. Thank you. Is it all right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Just keep going.
I just want,
Keep going.
thank you very much. Okay, apologies for that, everybody. There were some adjustments to the microphone by my colleague here. There's been work undertaken by officers during the year to assess the needs of the environmental maintenance service in terms of asset replacement and the affordability of these, and it is good to see that these are reflected in the programme. This, together with the long-awaited HRA business plan and AMP previously referred to, now informing our capital strategy, and these documents now all align and are informing the budget as they should do, is really good. The lack of capital funding and need to generate further revenue as set out in the latter report demonstrates how important the asset development programme will be to our future financial sustainability. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. It is essential that the provision is made in the proposed programme for further development in this area. Apologies if that sounds a bit disjointed, a few objects there. I'm therefore pleased to move the recommendations at 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6 and 2.7 in this report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to second it.
I'll now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak, please. No. If there's no members wish to speak, we'll now proceed to a vote, please. All those in favour?
Yeah, 22 in favour.
Yeah. Any against? Any abstentions? No. I can confirm then that this item has been passed. Thank you. Item 11. I will now invite the portfolio holder for corporate governance, finance and resources, Councillor de Burgh, to present the Cabinet recommendations to Council on the General Fund Revenue Budget 23-24 and medium-term financial strategy 24 to 25 to 26-27. Thank you.
Once again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, this is a long and quite complex report. I do not plan to trawl through all 62 pages. I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear. You have the report, and if there is anything of specific interest to you, you can raise the question either here or indeed at any time. Nevertheless, there are some key messages that I must cover and some recommendations that it is vital that we approve to keep the wheels turning. First, although this report is primarily aimed at presenting the general fund revenue budget for next fiscal year, 2023-24, I believe, however, that it's important to share with you how we believe the current year will end. Members, it is no secret, we all know it, that the council's finances remain extremely challenging. And if it were not for the work of our officers in pulling the current year from what was originally going to be a large deficit to a broadly balanced position, for which we owe them our thanks, we should be in a much different place now. As it is, it looks as if we may finish with an overspend of 32k in general expenses and 45,000 in special expenses. Though this is not certain, there are a few more days to go before the end of the year. Moving to 2023-24, our draft budget has been prepared based on the corporate strategy 2020 to 2024, which has been refined by various research initiatives expressed at 4.22 to 4.24 in your papers. Also taken into account are the key budget principles shown at 4.3, local government finance settlement, at 4.4.1 through to 4.4.4. We've allowed for a 2.99% increase across all funds, the maximum allowed, and arrived at the figure in the table at 4.5 on page 104. From this, you can see that deficits are being forecast in the general fund of 141,000, which are to be met from the corporate priorities reserve, and in special expenses Melton Mowbray of 96,000, which will be met from the special expenses reserve. Members, planning to utilise reserves to balance the budget of 2023-24 is hardly an ideal start to the year. And considering the future forecasts highlighted in the table on page 109, I cannot stress how important it will be for the financial sustainability programme when it is put together to realistically address the challenges we face. We need a realistic and achievable plan. And in this context, it is important we maintain our momentum on the asset development programme, as this will be key to maximising on the beneficial value those assets which are unused can provide, which will feed into our financial sustainability programme with the potential for generating much needed revenue and capital resources. We need to recognise that this is not a short-term programme, and in the meantime, we will need to look elsewhere for savings to address the immediate gap that we have in our finances. Our budget pressures are not just limited to general expenses. The proposed budget provides for investment in extending the life of our cemetery, and we need to be prepared for the necessary financial implications should we decide to extend by way of a new cemetery. Mr. Mayor, members, thank you for your patience. I am happy to move that Council approves the recommendations at 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4 and 2.5 and notes the changes to the financial risk classification at 2.6. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please?
Yes, happy to second. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak, please. No. We will now proceed to a recorded. Oh, sorry. Councillor Pritchett.
Thank you very much. I found this, like the previous report, very, very good. And any questions I've got of detail, I can email the officers. For tonight, just a couple of points of clarification. Recent food environmental health investigation and a current animal welfare investigation. Am I right in assuming that the more we investigate, the more it costs us, and that we're not able to recover the costs of the investigatory work from the courts? That's my one question. And the other question is, that's page 95 and 99. It's in the narrative. And again, page 99, 100. Does the budget for planning include to continue to provide for a leadership post in planning? Thank you.
Can I ask a member or staff to respond, please? Oh.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think I'm probably most appropriate to answer the question in relation to legal costs. The council will always make an application to the court for costs for both investigation cost and legal cost, but it comes down to the court. These awards are means tested, and it comes down to the ability of the defendant to pay.
Just, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, in terms of the leadership post, yes, it does. The budget does include that.
Any other members wish to speak? Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, just ever so quickly as well is obviously again with members of the public is obviously we're setting out the reasons why council tax is to increase. Other councils are probably doing more, increasing it more. It is a very difficult time for all concerned households as well as the public authorities as well. That all said is like with inflation, this is significantly below inflation. But again, I think while that may be said, people aren't going to necessarily thank you that it's below inflation, because inflation's running away with household bills all over the place. And I think just to do it justice that it is debated that with council tax provision, we've got to also understand that, and I might have this wrong, Dawn, but for every £36,000 we just flitter away or spend on various projects, if it doesn't come out with a value add outcome, and I know Councillor Holmes was, she's been raising some issues around concerns about various different spending there. If we're not careful, that any increases are just going to be of what we've spent on ideas, and it's got to be a way where we're actually driving the value back into the council on the medium to long term finance. So while I think Melton's doing well compared to other councils, I think just because those members of the public who do ask why their council tax goes up, it does need that kind of debate, and that there is scrutiny on everything that is being spent in this council. And again, like what the motion, I think that shows why the motion was put forward by Councillor Faulkner and people, I thought Councillor Inglis spoke really well on that, because if we take our eye off the ball, we're just going to just keep blowing the budget, and the increases, the public won't thank you for increasing their council tax when very much it's all going on things that they don't feel that is benefiting to them. But one good
Can
thing,
you just keep to the
it's
we're on, please.
but it is council, but it's
I know,
council,
but
council tax, isn't it?
Not referring back, please.
No, but just one good thing is what Melton does do is the refuse service has been absolutely exemplary all the way through COVID, all the way through now, and has been, that is definitely where this council touches on those doors every week, and so many councils are starting to impact there on that refuse, and that's very costly, all those costs going up. So we've just got to make sure that the public do know that we know the value of their money. Thank you.
Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 100. I regularly get asked about the cemetery house, the lodge, And I know that we brought this up at scrutiny, but I just wondered if we had actually costed how much it would cost to actually sell, or I don't know whether we can sell it or rent it out, because people are always asking me about this. When I go to Tesco's, and sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned it. Anyway, yeah, I just wondered if we could just find out, please.
Can you respond, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just to give some reassurance, there's actually a paper due to be considered by Cabinet in March on that particular item. So it is in hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members wish to speak, please? No. Well, in accordance with the General Procedure Rule 17.5A, the vote on this motion will be by recorded vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With your permission, I'd like to run through all members' names. As I do so in alphabetical order, I'll ask you to confirm whether you are for, against, or abstaining from the motion, please. So, Councillor Atherton.
For.
Councillor Bindloss.
For.
Councillor Brown is absent. Councillor Carter.
For.
Councillor Chandler.
For.
Councillor Child. Councillor Cumbers. Councillor de Burgh.
For.
Councillor Douglas.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Faulkner.
For.
Councillor Fisher is absent. Councillor Freer.
For.
Councillor Glancy.
For.
Councillor Graham.
For.
Councillor Hewson.
For.
Councillor Higgins. Councillor Holmes.
For.
Councillor Illingworth.
For.
Councillor Lumley.
For.
Councillor Orson and Councillor Posnett are absent. Councillor Pritchett.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Webster.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
And Councillor Wood is absent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's 22 for.
I can now confirm through the vote that recommendations have been passed by the council. Item 12. I'll now invite the portfolio holder for corporate governance, finance and resources, Councillor de Burgh, to present the Cabinet recommendations to Council on the Treasury Management Strategy and Prudential Indicators 23-24.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, the Local Government Act 2003 requires that in our financial dealings, we observe two codes. One, the CIPFA Code of Practice on Treasury Management, and two, the CIPFA Prudential Code for the Capital Finance in Local Authorities. CIPFA being the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy. A further requirement is that Council receives and approves annually a report on our Treasury Management Strategy, which demonstrates through a combination of reports, tables and statements clearly that we are complying with the requirements of the codes. Members, whilst quite a technical report, the various indicators and supporting narrative clearly demonstrate how a Treasury team manage the Council's finances in a prudent and measured way. The tables also show how cash flow is controlled to good effect and how well in a challenging environment we manage our borrowing and investments. A copy of that report is attached at Appendix A. As has been referred to in previous reports, with rising inflation, it is important we manage our cash flow well and maximise our returns from investments, as this can and has in the recent past mitigated the rising costs we are facing from inflationary pressures. Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to move the recommendations at 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3 in this report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to second again.
I now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak, please. No. We will now proceed to a vote then, please. All those in favour? That's unanimous of the members in the room. Item 13, council tax setting. I will now invite the portfolio holder for corporate governance, finance and resources, Councillor de Burgh, to present the cabinet recommendations to council on the council tax setting for 23-24. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Final shot, I think. Members, under the Local Government Finance Act 1992, Melton Borough Council, as the billing authority, is required to set the council tax for the forthcoming financial year, which includes the council tax set by all parishes and preceptors. The Leicestershire County Council figures contained within the report have been confirmed following their meeting on the 22nd of February, I believe. And whilst the average increase in council tax for this council is 2.99%, the average for the whole area, when all the precepts are included, is 4.99%. The table at paragraph 9.1, page 212 of the report, clearly shows that this council has set the lowest average overall council tax out of all categories of authorities. You can see the individual amounts for each band and each area set out in Appendix C. For Melton, the general fund increased in a Band D property equates to 12.5p a week. Following your approval this evening, the hard work really starts for our revenues team as they prepare for the annual bills to be produced and distributed. It's no mean task. They all have to go out very quickly. We do recognise that there will be some in our community who may have difficulties with their bills. And to help with that, we have resources and support that can be made available to those who find themselves in that position. Mr. Mayor, given that assurance, I'm happy to move the recommendation at 2.1 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please?
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to second the recommendation. Thank you.
I'll now open this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate if they wish to speak, please. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to recognise the parish council, 7 of them, who were able to reduce their precepts this year.
Any other members? Councillor Chandler.
It will come hard to a lot of people that it's going up. I mean, the fire authority, another 6.73%. They never seem to stop. I know we all need them, and we're soon on 999 if we see some smoke. And I know there was a council property that caught fire on Sunday. But I think a lot of people are concerned about our sundry debtors. The amount that we have outstanding, people feel is a worrying feature. And I mean, it's been said to me in Bottisford that the council are an easy touch. If you want to stick some money somewhere, well, don't pay Melton because I'll never chase you for it. Now we've got to get that wrong, righted. I mean, it's the wrong that's got to be righted. I mean, I know businesses are hard hit at the moment, but there's a lot of businesses that could pay business rates that aren't paying it because they know that Melton will let them go for a few months. That's not right. Everybody should be paying month by month, like we pay our council tax by direct debit. Our sundry debtors are far too high, and I'll say that to anyone. Thank you.
Any other members wish to speak, please? No. We'll now proceed to a recorded vote in accordance with the General Procedure Rule 17.5A. The vote will be, for this motion will be by recorded vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, with your permission, members, if I can invite you all to confirm whether you are for, against, or wish to abstain from the motion. Councillor Atherton.
For.
Councillor Bindloss.
For.
Councillor Brown is absent. Councillor Carter.
Against.
Councillor Chandler.
For.
Councillor Child is absent. Councillor Cumbers.
For.
Councillor de Burgh.
For.
Councillor Douglas.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Faulkner.
For.
Councillor Fisher is absent. Councillor Freer.
For.
Councillor Glancy.
For.
Councillor Graham.
For.
Councillor Hewson.
For.
Councillor Higgins. Councillor Holmes.
For.
Councillor Illingworth.
For.
Councillor Lumley.
Against.
Councillor Orson and Councillor Posnett are absent. Councillor Pritchett.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Webster.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
And Councillor Wood is absent. 19 for and 2 against.
The result for that is 19 for and 2 against. So the motion has been passed. Thank you. Item 14, review of political balance, allocation of seats to political groups. I'll now invite the monitoring officer to present and review of the political balance and allocation of seats to political groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. By way of background, on the 5th of January, the proper officer was notified of Councillor Higgins' wish to be treated as a member of the Conservative group. On the 7th of January, the proper officer received notification from the Conservative group that Lee Higgins was to be treated as a Conservative councillor. Now, pursuant to the Local Government and Housing Act, the authority is under a duty to review the allocation of seats to political groups as soon as practicable, following a change to the membership of those groups, and the council is under a duty to determine the allocation of seats to ensure there's proportionality across all formal activities of the council that represents the overall political composition. In addition, and following a query raised in January 23, a review of the political balance calculations were undertaken, which highlighted that there is a layering of the rules, which are complex and result in ambiguity and inconsistency in the interpretation of the legislation. The subsequent modifications are often missed. So I just want to ensure that members are aware and note that the method used in this calculation for political balance is different to the calculation that we have previously adopted, and we will be including the statutory licensing committee and the non-aligned members in the calculation. The political proportionality rules apply in allocating seats on committees as set out in the report at section 15 and section 16 of the Act. They apply to political groups, and our political groups have made nominations which are contained in Appendix A, which members should find on their desks in front of them. The modification to the rules provide that the independent non-aligned members also form part of the calculation for political balance purposes. So once those seats have been allocated to political groups, the remaining seats are to be appointed by council from independent non-aligned members. The non-aligned members have also put forward their preferences, which are also contained in Appendix A on members' desks. Having recalculated the political balance calculations to include non-aligned members and also the statutory licensing committee,
Members are being asked to approve the political balance calculations as per the report, approve the allocation of seats, note the appointments that have been put forward in respect of committees and working groups in accordance with the wishes of the group, appoint the non-aligned members as per Appendix A, delegate authority to myself as the monitoring officer to make any consequential changes to the procedure rules and to the procedure rules which reference the substitution procedure rules and the licensing procedure rules, and also note the appointments to the Patrol Joint Committee as outlined in paragraph 5.17 of your reports. That's my report presentation, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Can I have a proposer, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You will be very relieved to hear, but I have little to add to the Assistant Director for Governance and Democracy's report. I have therefore have great pleasure in moving recommendations 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6 and 2.7. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. You'll be even more pleased to know I've got less to say than Councillor Graham had. Happy to second the motion.
Thank you. I'll now open this to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate if they wish to speak. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I should have asked the monitoring officer ahead of the meeting, but with regards to working groups, there's a constitutional review working group. Does that fall within the parameters of this paper or not?
The groups that we've included in this paper are those that are, operate under the political balance rules. The Constitutional Review Working Group is a cross-party group, and we already have a non-aligned member on that group.
And opposition.
And opposition.
Councillor Webster. No. Councillor Evans.
I've just got to get this right. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think every councillor, whatever their political group or alignment, should have some representation on a committee. And we've got to that stage. In fact, when this came up 6 months or 9 months ago, I was one of those councillors who looked around and saw it's a weird situation in this country. And I think it's something that really needs clarification, because in some councils, non-aligned councillors are not allowed on any committees and all the rest of it, which I think is wrong. And there's some they are. The concern when I spoke around about this, and there is a concern about non-aligned members, is who decide. Obviously in the Conservative or the opposition group, the leader decides who goes where. How we need to sort this out, because obviously a non-aligned group do not have a leader. So if two people say, and I'm just making something else, wanted to go on planning and they couldn't reach an agreement, how do you decide that? Because obviously at the moment, the officers would just approach the leader of the group and say, who is going to be where? We've got 3 non-aligned. How do you decide that if there's a dispute, because they are independent, literally, councillors, how do you decide who goes where if there's an issue? Because I think if we're going to go down this route, we need to nail it down to that situation. Thank you.
Can the monitor respond, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We would attempt to adopt the same process like we have for before today's meeting in requesting nominations to be put forward. If we had more than one nomination for a particular seat, then it would fall to council to make that appointment. We would vote on each of the nominations that have been put forward. It's explicit I've included it in your reports at paragraph 10.7 of the legal implications. It's the duty of the authority, as the case may be, to make appointments to secure persons appointed to those seats and not members of any political group.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, on the Joint Staff Working Group, my name is down, and actually it's Councillor Carter that should have his name down. Not, if we can just get that right, please.
Mr. Mayor, we're more than happy to accept that. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Glancy.
Well, this must be a record. For the second time this evening, I've agreed with Councillor Evans. Yes, all councillors should be represented on committees. And for that very reason, I'm afraid I have difficulty with one of the recommendations this evening, because yet again, I find myself not included on committees, apart from as a substitute on licensing. So I can't agree with 2.4. Again, so in essence, I have been isolated from normal committees for whatever reason. And I'm not going to go into that this evening, it's not the place. But Newport Ward residents have once again lost one of their voices on committees, which is not acceptable. However, I fully support the other recommendations, in particular 2.5. So therefore, I will abstain. I ask for my comments to be minuted, please.
Councillor Cumbers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, there are parts of this which I don't agree with, the way some members are treated. But I do think it is so important that now that non-aligned are going to get their fair share. And so I will be supporting everything here. Thank you.
Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, Thank you, Councillor Delancey. I'll make a statement first, and then I'll just talk about parts of what some parts of the law or judges have said on what some of the comments have been made. As I was saying earlier today about the misuse of power through the means to undermine or humiliate or denigrate or injure recipients. But I would like to thank the Conservative Party who reviewed the matter in my particular case. And I thought I did give notice to the monitoring officer before Christmas, but I'm okay for that if it's going to be on the 5th of January. In that particular instance, they were disappointed with the correspondence that I received. And as a result, that is in the matter of
I'm
my
sorry,
solicitor.
this is not to do with the political balance.
No, to be fair,
talking
Mr. Mayor,
about.
it is because I'm back on a particular group, so I just had to make that statement. Bearing in mind, I've had full support from my community, and I'd like to thank them, including people from religious backgrounds, all the
This is
various
not-
diversity
This is not
groups.
about the political balance, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying.
No, I'm sorry, but
I'm just
if
going
you've
to
got
finish.
something to say about the political balance, then you can say that, please.
Well, that's right, and that's what I'm just going to say, but it is relevant to that particular part. So Lord Justice Neil has also said that.
I'm sorry, can you just keep to
It is
where we are,
It
please?
absolutely is, Mr. Mayor. If you let me finish, I will just explain what the law has said. Now, Lord Justice Neil has established that council cannot act to punish a councillor if the reason was vindictive or malice. And Lord Justice Staunton.
I'm sorry,
Mr.
I'm sorry,
Mayor,
councillor, but
point
I
of
can't-
order.
This is not part of this. I'm
It's a
sorry.
serious matter.
Thank
which
you.
Lord Justice Staunton said.
We're
And
sticking
that's
to the
all I
I'm
want
sorry,
to
can you
know.
take your seat, please?
That's fine.
Thank you. Any other members wish to speak, please? No. We'll now proceed to a vote, please. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions?
Yes.
Three.
I can confirm with the members that are in the room that this has been carried. Thank you. Item 15, review of members' allowances annual increase. I will now invite the Deputy Leader to present the review of members' allowances annual increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report seeks council approval on how to apply the uplift of members' allowances in light of the fact a flat rate was agreed for full-time employees in 22-23. The member allowance scheme provides that both the basic allowance and the special responsibility allowance shall be increased annually in line with the National Joint Council Staff Pay Award. Historically, the pay award has been expressed as a percentage, which is applied to the staff pay points as appropriate, and member allowances have reflected the same percentage uplift each year. In 22-23, a flat rate of £1,925 was agreed for employees on all NJC points rather than a percentage, but it did not provide a clear mechanism for members' allowances, hence the need for a council decision. The LGA national employers stressed that they could not recommend a particular course of action, but they were aware some councils were using the 4.04% increase that was applied to NJC allowances. Mr. Mayor, this is always a contentious issue, but I feel that the recommendations go some way to reflecting the impact of the inflation that we have all seen in a justifiable form. Of course, as is always the case, those who do not wish to claim any part of our allowances can always inform the relevant officer. I have pleasure in moving the recommendations 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have pleasure in supporting this motion. Thank you. Seconding, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll now this item to debate and invite members to raise their hand to indicate whether they wish to speak, please. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand that in the context of the rest of the meeting and some of the other items that have been put forward and voted on, that this is not going to be a very popular thing for the public to see. However, I do think I'm a strong advocate of anyone being able to stand as a councillor and supporting anyone of any background to be able to put themselves forward. And the members' allowance that we get is already quite low. It is not enough for someone to be a councillor as a full-time job. And an increase of 4.04% might be that little push to get other people from other backgrounds into the role and might encourage some fresh voices and new faces. And I think that is never a bad thing. So I'm happy to support this.
Mr. Faulkner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I just can't believe that after we've just increased rents on our tenants, increased council tax, we're now looking to increase our own remuneration. I think it's very inappropriate at this time. And not only are we voting to increase our remuneration, it's going to be backdated to April last year. Now, that's got to be some kind of sick April Fool's joke that nobody's going to get, because I certainly don't get it. Now, I don't expect this council to vote this motion down, but what I intend to do with mine, the backdated amount of my money, because I don't think it's appropriate, I intend to donate my back payment to Melton Storehouse. Thank you.
Councillor Higgins.
Well, Councillor Faulkner, that's really generous of you. I was just going to say that if this motion goes through, I'm going to donate that uplift to local and national charities for very similar reasons Councillor Faulkner said. I think obviously it's going to go to helping some of those in the local community, and the national charities that I support are going to be Macmillan Nurses. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to echo what Councillor Smith had said. You know, it's imperative that an elected body is representative of its community. And as a member who is in their probably late 30s now, who works full time, I'd argue that Councillor Smith and I bring a very, very different perspective to this council. And it's important that people of our generation, millennials, are heard on this council. When I was elected, I didn't really give much consideration to any allowances, but councils have traditionally been dominated by people who are retired, people who are financially independent, And we need to make sure that members are given an allowance and given, you know, is reflective of the time that is put into being a councillor. It does take up a considerable lot of time, has an impact on work, has an impact on private lives. And I think that I would support this. I think we need to encourage more people to come forward to become councillors, and this is the one way that we can do that.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is always a tough one. Voting for your own pay rise seems a bit wrong to me, and I never feel comfortable standing here. Look, what we do with our allowances and whether we claim it even is up to us. That's up to each individual. I agree with Councillor Smith in what we need members, and we need more members. I mean, I look at the parish councils around who get paid nothing, and most parish councils struggle to keep their membership going. If we want democracy, we have to pay for it, I'm afraid. It's not free, and that we need to encourage more people, young people in particular. He looks around the room, goes and looks in a mirror. We need to get younger people involved. You're not going to do this because the amount we get paid is way below minimum wage. If you look at the number of hours you have to put in as a councillor. When it comes to your own personal preferences, what you do with the salary that comes from here, that's up to you and up to each individual. I'm not going to publicly say what I do with it because it's a private matter for me, but I am comfortable with the fact that I support enough charities as it is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other members wish? Councillor Freer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in support of this report for the reasons that have been given by the other members about attracting new members and making sure that the amount that we get recompensed is appropriate to what the amount of work that we do. I also echo the fact that being kind of in my 16th year, the impact to my family and my work life has been considerable, and it has been a support and help to have an allowance. At this particular time, I'm kind of on the same page as Councillor Faulkner. Never been on the same page as Councillor Faulkner, but I am on the same page as Councillor Faulkner in this time of crisis, in this time that things are going up, prices are going up. I'm not a very rich person myself, so you know, if they paid me 20% more a year, brilliant, I'd love it. But I actually wanted to just stand up and say that I won't be receiving anything, and I want to publicly say that the rise and the backdated is something that I feel at this moment in time I don't want to take, and I will write to the appropriate officers, but I will support this for the other members that spoke. Thank you.
Any other members wish to speak, please? Nope. We'll now proceed with the vote then, please. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? I can confirm then that the recommendations have been passed. Thank you. I can say now that the meeting's closed at, where are we now? It's, get the right numbers.
22.
8:40.
Yeah.
Pardon? Yes, it is, yes. And if members would like to join me, the drinks will be open if you want to after the meeting. Thank you.
Members, ladies and gentlemen, can I ask you to please be upstanding for the Mayor of the Borough of Melton, Councillor Alan Hewson.
You go first. You go first.